Welcome to tonight's episode of Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and as always, I have a very special guest for you, Rachelle Suissa, who's the president of Dare to Run. She'll be with us for the next 30 minutes, so stay with us. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Beyond Focus TV allows you to discuss contemporary topics affecting the Caribbean people on both a national and local level. The show features informed guests who offer insight, debate, and evaluate various issues. Beyond Focus TV builds on the station's mission to provide useful information to the Caribbean people in New York and abroad. Beyond Focus TV, where our viewing audience can get educated, informed, and empowered. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel. Like I said, I have a very special guest for you. I want to welcome Rachelle Suissa, who's the president of Dare to Run. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you here, especially in these political times that we're having right now. I think it's just so fitting and makes a lot of sense to actually bring a woman on board who you have a 501c3, but you're going to get into all that in just a little bit. But welcome again. It's really nice to actually have people who are moving and shaking and doing things in the community.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome. So let's talk about what is Dare to Run.
Okay, so, and I'm very good at talking about that. Dare to Run is actually my baby. So I graduated with my second Master of Science in Nonprofit Management last year. And my final project, my master's thesis, was a business plan for Dare to Run. You know, I had always dreamed of starting an organization that would help train women very much in depth how to run for office, give them the tools, both academic and practical, that they need to be successful candidates for public office. So Dare to Run is incorporated in the state of New York. We don't have 501c3 status as of yet. However, we are working on that very vigilantly. And we've made a lot of progress thus far since our inception. So I'm very proud of the progress and the work that we've done.
That's fantastic to even know that something like this exists, because a lot of times, even as a woman, you kind of think about, you know, we see a lot of men in office, they're running, and it's like, okay, how do we, yes, there are a lot of women who run as well, but it's like, what path do you have to take, or what's the best steps to take? So it's great that we actually now have resources available for this, which is fantastic. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Rachelle Suissa?
Oh, okay. Well, that could take a while, but I'm going to give you
it. Let's get a brief synopsis.
Sure. So I mean, I've always been an academic my whole life. Even when I was little, I was reading books. My favorite book series was The Babysitter's Club, and it was about a group of female entrepreneurs. They were 13-year-old girls. They started a babysitting business. They babysat for people in the community in exchange for money, obviously. But, you know, I loved Christy. Christy was the founder of the organization, and she was my inspiration and my role model through much of my childhood. And you know, kind of growing up, I never thought I'd be the founder of an organization to train women how to run for public office, but I think Christy inspired me. You know, it's very important for little girls to have female role models, and Christy was one of mine. So
that's amazing. And have you ever reached out to maybe the author or anyone, and now through social media it's so much easier to just kind of share your story, that a character in a book so many years ago could have, you know, been an inspiration for, you know, your lifelong path?
I've not reached out to her, but that's a very good idea. I'll definitely contact Anne Martin, who is the author of that series. She was wonderful. I had every book in her collection, and I'm definitely going to reach out to her now. So.
I think that's an interesting thing. You know, I love kind of paying homage to people, or even just letting them know, because even somebody today listening to you might actually, you know, just get inspired. So you mentioned your second degree, second master's. Actually, so what kind of led up to that? I know you said you've always been an academic.
Well, so my first master's was in political science, right? So my master's thesis was a 100-page thesis on Hillary Clinton and Sarah Palin and the impact of gender and the female voter turnout in the 2008 election. So you can imagine how many volumes have been written about that already. But then, you know, after that was like the theory-based component. And then after that, I was thinking, well, what am I going to do with this? I have 100 pages on Hillary Clinton and Sarah Palin, but I want to do something with it. It's not enough just to write about it. So about 3 years ago, I decided, you know, I think I'm going to go back and get my nonprofit management degree and maybe start a nonprofit or start an organization or do something to help more women run for office, you know, kind of the practical application of the theory side. So that's what I ended up doing.
That is so interesting. Now, totally random, but have you ever just sat back and reread your thesis?
I have. I've read it 1,000 times, and each time I read it, I find new things
something
wrong.
Different.
Something not only different, but something wrong, or something that could be changed, or, you know, it's been 10 years since they both ran, so I've found like new information that can be added or taken away or things like that.
So. That is very interesting to know that, you know, looking back, like you said, it's been 10 years. It's a long time, and new things have come and surfaced, and it's just kind of interesting. So after fast forward, you did the second degree, came out from that, and decided to actually create Dare to Run.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and what's interesting is that ever since Trump got elected, there's been so much momentum. There's been sort of a political moment for women in this country. I believe that both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have inspired women to run for office in their own ways. Hillary, obviously, because she's a woman, she clawed her way to the top. She's held so many high-ranking positions. She's an inspiration for women. And I think Donald Trump has also inspired women to run, but more out of force, out of this need to have more female representation. So they're both actually very good anchors for women in public office when you think about it.
That's a good way to look at it, especially from the Donald Trump perspective, trying to find some positives. But looking at that, it makes a lot of sense because of a lot of things that have been said or put out there through the media. It would make you want to go ahead and have to take a stance, want to run for office. And then if you hit a crossroad, well, then you could decide, where do you get more information? How do I do this?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think for me, Hillary Clinton has always been one of my role models. I have every book that she's ever written. I have all the books that have been written about her. For me, I remember when she was a senator in New York, and she basically went down to D.C., and she and Chuck Schumer both asked Bush for money to rebuild Ground Zero, 9/11. A lot of people forget Hillary Clinton's history. They forget that she was a senator. They forget that she was a first lady. They forget a lot of the important things that she's done. And I think it's important to recognize that she's really one of the top inspirations for not just me, but for, my entire generation of women who might potentially run for office one day.
Of course. And that, you literally just ran into my next question, because with all this passion, and I could hear the passion that you speak about it when we're talking about politics, do you ever see yourself wanting to take that dive?
It could be. There's a possibility I might consider it in the future. Right now, I feel that my role, my objective is to help as many women have the skills, fundraising, branding, messaging, delivery, public speaking. These are all very important skills. So my role at this moment in time is to help as many women as possible get the skills that they need to run for office. Maybe in another 10 or 15 years, I might consider it. But right now, I really want to focus on building my nonprofit and helping as many women as possible run for office.
That's amazing. And right now, there are so many people who are trying to get into the movement, which is fantastic. So really crafting the story and crafting the tools. In the next segment, I actually want to touch upon a couple of those items that you talked about, like your branding, how it's so important, the messaging that's out there, having the right campaign. I mean, these are all little things that really could affect you long term.
They do. Branding, messaging, having the right logo, having the right colors, the right font, all of these I've learned over the last year are extremely important, especially for a new organization.
Wow. And funding.
Funding. Once we get the C3 status, we can get into that conversation, but funding is always a bit of a challenge for a new organization. So.
Absolutely. And those are things, especially without that status, it puts you in kind of a gray area. The intentions are always good, which I think is great, because you're still trying to reach out there and get to as many people as possible. So that's amazing. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into section 2. If you're into politics, you're definitely going to want to keep it locked right here. Watching Beyond Focus TV. Stay with us. Back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, sitting here with Rachelle Suissa. So Rachelle, let's talk about the branding and some of the key important things. So let's say someone were to come and set up a consultation with you. They're doing this for the first time, so they need to get their branding, their messaging. You mentioned the colors and the font. So let's kind of take it apart and talk about what would be the best kind of format for all that's kind of the standard, and basically will get you over through the door.
Sure, absolutely. So recognize that when you start a nonprofit, again, like I said initially, the branding and the logo is perhaps one of the key, most important things that the founder can focus on. And keep in mind, we did go through at least 20 or 30 different logos before we finally settled on what we currently have. So it's interesting because I actually posted an ad on Craigslist looking for a pro bono logo designer, somebody who would be willing to donate some time to help us, kind of craft our logo and craft the vision for the organization. And I actually met Ben Loyce, who has a studio out in California, and he agreed to help us pro bono, which was extremely nice. Putting a logo together can cost thousands of dollars depending
Yes.
on the vision, the mission of the organization, and what we're trying to accomplish. So he actually helped us come up with the current logo, which is Dare to Run. So the word dare is red, the word to is in purple, and the word run is in blue. And it kind of looks like the letters are sort of actually running away from the block behind the logo. And what I love about the logo is the message it conveys and also the colors it uses, because red is for Republican, purple is for independent, blue is for Democrat. So it's encompassing all political parties in one sketch, in one figure. And actually, when I showed this logo to our board, to our staff, to everybody who works with us, they were like mesmerized by it. They couldn't believe how beautiful it looked. And it's actually done very well on social media. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these different social media sites. So branding and messaging is very important. You have to take time, you have to put energy and effort into it. But once you do that and you find the right person who can help you, then you can come out with the right product, the right final product.
And then what's the next step?
The next step is you publicize it everywhere, right? So he sends you a file. My logo designer sent me a file with all the different pictures for Facebook. There's a profile picture we have for the Facebook background page, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of these different social media networks. You have a regular color picture, PNG, and you have a JPEG. So you have to have kind of all of those files, and they also send you the color code, right? So there's very specific colors that have been selected for this logo, which I use all the time. I use Canva. I use those colors all the time, and I've created some beautiful graphics on our social media with those colors. So it's really incredibly important to have a good logo and a good design involved.
So in terms of messaging, I know that could be a little bit of a tricky one because some people just don't know how to convey the best message in the most concise and succinct way. So what are your tips for that?
So, and what's important to keep in mind in messaging is that we are a nonpartisan organization. So we have to be able to reach across the political aisle to all women, independent women, Republican women, Democratic women, and everybody in between. If you're walking the line between moderate and conservative, our message has to reach you. And we've actually been very successful with that. I always use our colors. I keep the message very nonpartisan, nothing geared toward Democrats or Republicans, something that all women can relate to. And they do relate to that. We've actually attracted a lot of interesting women from both the Democratic and the Republican side. And we had our Women's Leadership Conference recently. We got the opportunity to hear from women from both sides of the aisle, which was really interesting. And I'm so glad that we've been able to do that and kind of forge those relationships, reach across the aisle. Because when you get to Congress, when you get to the Assembly or the Senate or whichever branch of government you're going into, you're going to have to reach across the aisle, and you're going to have to work with people from
Very
all
true.
sides of the aisle. It's not just going to be your party. You're going to have to forge those bipartisan relationships. And I think Dare to Run prepares women for that challenge and gives them the tools they need to be bipartisan, at least in terms of the academic process.
Now, I know we spoke offline and we were saying that in most recent times you've had a lot of interest from Republican women who have been coming in. And we know the GOP has been typically an old boys club. That's
For the most part,
For
yeah.
the most part. It's been the overall traditional way of it. But a lot of women who are Republican have been kind of stepping out and getting more into that. And they've been coming to Dare to Run to just get some advice, get some branding.
Absolutely, yes. So we most recently we had we had Naomi Levin, who is a House District candidate. She was running for House of Representatives District 10 in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and she was actually a speaker at our Women's Leadership Conference about a week ago. She did a phenomenal job. She's working mostly with the Orthodox Hasidic community in Brooklyn, and that's a very conservative base. And she shared her experiences as a conservative woman running for office in New York State, which is important. And we've also been working with Ashley Zanata, who was running for state assembly out on Staten Island. She did not win. However, she did a phenomenal job. She reached across the aisle. She received both Democratic and Republican endorsements, which is very hard for a young Republican woman to be able to do, but she did it. She's one of the most bipartisan Republicans I've ever met, and I've met a lot of people from both sides of the aisle. She's a truly phenomenal woman, and we were proud to have met her, to have worked with her, and to have been a part of her campaign, unofficially.
So what are traditionally the steps if someone wants to come to Dare to Run or looking to be in office and basically utilize some of your services?
Sure. So we're actually